You're listening to the 40 Fit Radio podcast, dedicated to the 40-plus community. Join us as we discuss the truth about fitness and health using science, reason, and the experiences of our host and content experts. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation.
Welcome to Fair Fit Radio, and welcome back to the Fair Fit Nation. This is Coach Trent.
And this is Coach D. I sound like a sick leprechaun.
You sound like a leprechaun with the COVID.
Oh, shite. Hey, guys. So we are back, but we were back earlier this week, and Coach D screwed it up. So we are totally transparent here at 40 Fit Radio. That's one of the values that you get with us is we are real people. We are not influencers or fake internet kind of guys.
Automatons.
We are real people with air quotes. But we recorded on Tuesday on St. Patrick's Day, and I recorded both of our voices on the same channel. So that doesn't work really well when you go to edit and when Coach Trent, our master of editing and producer and all things amazing, omniscient, podcast producer one. And so basically we're redoing it.
Yeah.
But we did it on St. Patrick's Day, and we wanted to say to all of our fellow Irishmen, because Trent and I are both Irish, that we love you guys and ladies. And we just want to say happy belated St. Patty's Day.
And we had a long, drawn-out discussion about who St. Patty was, because I'm a terrible Irishman, because I thought it was Scottish for so long.
Yeah.
So I don't even know.
Saint of Ireland.
Yeah, the patron saint of Ireland.
Yep.
So
pretty cool. And there's most of the pictures that you see of him are him holding a clover or a shamrock.
Yeah.
And it's actually a three-leaf
clover, right? And now, does that have to do with like the Trinity?
That's a good question. I'm not that smart, but yes, it does, Trent.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Please do not fact check that and Google that right now.
Yeah.
Well, so why are we here? And what did we talk about Tuesday that was so amazing?
Yeah. So, I've gotten an avalanche of messages and emails of people being like, "Bro, what do I do? My gym's closed.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose my gains."
Yeah,
bro.
I know it really sucks to
I want to keep the gains
the
trains
best
rolling.
word possible, but we got to keep that gain train moving forward in our fitness. Our fitness never stops. It either goes backwards, it goes forwards. It's very seldomly in a I guess you would say a homeostasis. It very seldomly stays the same. And so our goal is to continue to develop and continue to promote your fitness and health and your lifestyle here at 40 Fit and the 40 Fit Nation. And so what we're going to do today, and let me say before I say what we're going to do today, we record in the office of Fort Worth Strength and Conditioning Gym here live in Keller, Texas, North Texas area. And we have been mandated by Tarrant County and thus the city of Keller, which is one of the cities in Tarrant County. It's a sister city to the county seat, which is Fort Worth, to close our gym. So we have closed the gym as of midnight last night. We are in here recording today, but we're not training. And we're sending out to all of our members over the next 7 days due to the mandated quarantine, bodyweight workouts, home workouts to do. But we also have been bombarded by 40 Fit Nation members who want home workouts, hey, what do I do at home? Here's what I have available. Here's what I don't have available. So we're going to publish on our newsletter, which will go out, I think, Trent, you said, are they going out tomorrow or to?
Well, you're going to hear this episode on Friday morning, and the newsletter will go out Friday morning as well.
Okay, cool. So so we'll have this will go out tomorrow, which will be March the 20th.
March 20th
of 2020. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah,
March 2020. That's pretty cool. And so the newsletter will go out tomorrow, and we're calling it, and this episode is Quarantine Fitness.
Get your gas mask on.
Yeah. So we're going to produce Quarantine Fitness. And it'll be basically a whole grouping of body weight and some resistance home workouts that you can do while you're in quarantine. So that's the goal.
All right. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, let's talk just quickly about kind of physical adaptations and how what we're going to do is going to fit into that picture. Because everybody's like, I don't want to lose my gains.
Right.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about what your gains are in the first place, right?
Right.
So most of what we talk about here is developing strength, right? As a general physical adaptation. And strength is a combination of your ability to be neuromuscularly efficient, to fire a bunch of muscle mass, a bunch of muscle fibers, and exert a bunch of force.
Right.
And there's two components to that. There's the neurological component of firing, turning on the muscle fibers.
Motor recruitment.
And then there's the second piece of it, which is the cross-sectional area of the muscle you have. And so all things being equal, a bigger muscle, more cross-sectional area is going to be a stronger muscle.
Yes. If you train within the strength domain type sets and rep schemes,
right,
then a larger muscle, someone who comes into the gym who generally has more muscle mass to start with, is easier to get stronger faster than someone who comes into the gym and has less muscle mass. That's the way it is. That's the simple truth.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, we all know that if you look at the extremes, you look at a bodybuilder and a power lifter, the power lifter is way stronger than the bodybuilder, but the bodybuilder ain't weak either.
No, crazy strong and big.
Right, that's right.
And power lifters are big, but they're kind of big everywhere. Higher body fat levels. When a bodybuilder's big, they're big and they have very low body fat still. So, they're big.
So there are separate adaptations there if you take them to the extremes, but even if strength is our goal and our priority, it serves us well to spend some time growing our muscle mass in addition to just doing the heavy strength work.
Right.
So even though, as you said earlier, we may not be able to train our top tier strength without access to barbells and heavy weights, we can still focus on the hypertrophy or muscle growth adaptation by using higher rep ranges. We'll get into that in a second. We also have a component of this, which is what energy systems are we using when we train? And when we barbell train, we're primarily training in that ATP phosphocreatine system and a little bit of glycolytic work as well. But what we can do is kind of move up the curve a little bit to more of that glycolytic longer duration range with the type of home workouts we're going to talk about.
Burn those fats.
So take this opportunity, if you're stuck at home without a gym, to work on some of your other physical adaptations. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually helps you get stronger in the end.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you guys that are CrossFitters or that do high-intensity interval training, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about not necessarily CrossFit in and of itself in its purest form, but we are talking about high-intensity interval training. So the first thing I want to say is if you're mostly strength training with barbells right now as your training program, and now you don't have access to those types of loads, that level of loading. In other words, in regards to pure poundage, you don't have access to a barbell maybe, and you don't have access to a rack, and you don't have access to weights at that level. If you're squatting 355, it's hard to simulate a 355 squat with a kettlebell or with a dumbbell. So what ends up happening is, like we talked about, you're going to lose your top tier strength. But that's why we build this fitness. That's why we do what we do. We're trying to create a fitness level that will see you through the rough spots.
That's right.
See you through the hard stuff. And this is one of those not really so hard things. I saw a meme or something on Instagram or Facebook. I don't know where it was, but it's basically this. The wife said to the husband, "Our grandfathers picked up their lives and went to war. We're being asked to sit on the couch for a while."
Right.
I think we can do this, folks.
This isn't the Blitz.
No, I think we can do this, I really, and so the focus here is don't focus on the negative, the fact that you don't have access to your gym. Focus on the positive. You're going to get to do some other things, and we're going to throw some workouts out there that are high-intensity interval workouts, monostructural. They're multi-domainal, meaning you have several different compartments that you're working in your fitness, and it can only help you in the long run, even though your strength might wane a little bit.
Right.
But by doing some high-intensity interval training, you get that big hormonal endocrine response too, because it's kind of a fight or flight syndrome. And you get that, and you do get some catabolic gains. In other words, you do get some muscle breakdown, or you do get some adaptation. And I will say this also as a disclaimer. If you're not used to doing high intensity interval training, in other words, you're not doing it in your fitness program right now, then be careful.
Yeah.
Because if we throw a workout out there that's got a bunch of chin-ups in it, or a bunch of push-ups in it, or a bunch of air squats in it, and you're not used to that kind of rep range, err on the conservative side, because you'll be so sore you won't be able to walk or move your arms the next day.
Yeah, that's no
So
good.
we don't want you folks to get rhabdo too. So you need to be drinking a lot of water. You need to have your nutrition spot on. And you need to be careful and choose one of the slower paced, longer, slow distance workouts throughout the week. So maybe start with 1 or 2 high intensity interval workouts a week, and then have like a recovery workout that we throw in there too. That's more just like a long run or maybe it's something like that, a hike or something like that. So we'll throw some other creative stuff in there that won't seem like training necessarily, but guys, this is exercise. This is where exercise comes into play, but we'll try to make it as close to training as our definition in training as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'd say the other thing is there's a lot of fear and uncertainty going on right now, not the least being the virus pandemic, but also just a lot of economic uncertainty. And so I know there's a lot of stress and a lot of things that are yet to be seen. So use this opportunity also to just de-stress. I mean, I was kind of getting to me, I try to be calm and relaxed and not worry about things too much because there's not really much we can do about it. But I have to admit, kind of all the hysteria was kind of getting to me even yesterday. So I just trained and it felt so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
It's so good to just be able to do something positive.
Well, I mean, I saw what you posted on Instagram yesterday. And if y'all don't follow Trent on Instagram, follow him at Marmalade Cream. First of all, he's the best podcast producer in the world, and second of all, he's a talented musician. And he posted kind of a little 4 or 5 minute just guitar
this little
riff, that was just is awesome, man. And it's just kind of a relaxing meditation type guitar riff. It just gets you thinking about the things that you value in your life. I mean, we can see this as a negative, and to some people, this is a negative. They're in the hospital or they've lost loved ones, and we need to have our hopes and prayers go out to those people. But I think we need to focus on what we do have, not necessarily what we don't have.
Right.
And so that's the way we're approaching it here. That's what best benefits your fitness, health, and lifestyle, and that's the way we're going to do it.
That's
so.
Right.
Let's talk about working out at home.
All right, let's get into it.
All right. So first of all, when you're working out at home, we're assuming that you have very little to no equipment. So that means you don't have a rack, you don't have a barbell, you don't have the major pieces of strength training that we have like in a gym setting in your local gym, your rec center, or a private training facility. But we are going to also make some assumptions that you might have access to some things. So we'll throw out some workouts there that have everything from jump rope, like double unders, single unders in it, to kettlebell swings, to dumbbell swings, to dumbbell front squats, or what we would call a goblet squat, kettlebell goblet squat, Turkish get-ups, all these different things. And so you will see some workouts that have some equipment in them. If you don't have equipment, then you'll just have to scale that back, or you'll have to just modify it and add another movement into it.
Right.
So we're going to talk about how those movements are put together and how I like to design workouts when it comes to more bodyweight activities. So in general, I mean, I do, my background for the last 10 years, I owned, prior to owning, a Starting Strength affiliate gym, I owned CrossFit gyms for almost 10 years. We had three locations. And in that programming model, we would use basically 3 different principles. Number one, we would combine the combination of bodyweight movements, would be gymnastic style movements, resistance training, which might be an Olympic lift or a barbell lift or some type of resistance provided in the workout that was outside of body weight.
Yeah.
An external resistance. And then the last thing, we would put in monostructural type training or endurance single modal, unimodal type activities, which might be a run, the rower, the arm bike, or like the Airdyne, or swimming or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we would take those elements and we would combine those elements together in a workout. And some days we might have all 3 components, and it might be what we would call a triplet. And some days we might have 2 of those components, and it'd be what we would call a doublet, or it would be, coupled workout with 2 items. And then some days we might have only 1 item or movement in that, and it would be considered monostructural or a singlet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we can also do workouts that we do for time. That's another principle. Or we can have workouts that we do for work required. So a time-based workout would be you have 3 rounds to do them as fast as you can.
Yeah.
3 rounds for time of this.
Record your time
That's
each round.
time-based, okay? Yeah. And then we would have a workout that would be work-based, and it would be you have 10 minutes to do as many rounds as possible of these 3 movements.
Yeah, so
do as many rounds as possible.
The focus is on the number of rounds you complete instead of the
and you have a fixed
time
domain.
Yeah.
Okay. But the work is whatever you can get in there. So the work is variable, but the time domain is fixed. And then on the other workout, the work is fixed and the time domain is variable. In other words, we have an idea. Whenever I used to program workouts, I had an idea of where the bell curve of the gym would fall, the center of the bell curve would fall time domain wise. So when I would program things, using really the following 3 main principles. Number 1, combining all 3 of those movements, which would be body weight, resistive movements, and monostructural, more endurance-oriented movements. And they could be high-intensity interval movements too, but they'd be single movements, okay? Right. Like rowing, running, aerodyne bikes, arm bikes like we talked about. The second thing would be I would determine if the workout was going to be time-based or work-based, okay? And then the third thing would be in that scheme of programming was how to modulate those workouts throughout the week in a microcycle, and then how am I doing it every 2 weeks, and how am I doing it every 4 weeks in more of a macro cycle, all the way out to the quarter, and then half a year, and then a year, so that we get a mixture of those workouts in the design of the programming, okay? So those are the principles that we kind of followed when I was programming. Now, so let's talk about home-based workouts.
Yeah.
So first of all, body weight movements. So I like to do body weight movements that basically mimic the movements that we do in our compound movements because they're functional.
That's right.
Functional.
Yeah. We picked the barbell movements because they mimicked the things that we do in everyday life, right? Not
That's
the other
right.
way around. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
we've got a hip hinge.
Right.
We've got
bending over and picking something up.
Pick something off the floor, put something overhead. Those are kind of the basic movements of human.
Yeah, squat, picking up something off the floor and lifting something overhead or lifting something from ground to overhead, basically. I mean, that includes everything. So squats, when you're doing body weight, you could do everything from an air squat, which is just pure air squat, okay? Hip crease below the top of the knee and then stand back up. It's just an air squat, okay? The second type of squat that you could do would be like a loaded squat with a kettlebell or a dumbbell, and you could do that in a front squat setting, or what we call a goblet squat's the best way I like to do it, where the resistive item or the piece of equipment is up in front of you on your chest. Okay?
Right.
And so you could do that kind of squat, but it's still a squat, but it kind of more mimics a front squat than it does a true back squat or a low bar squat.
Right.
You could also put a heavy bag on your back down on the base of your shoulders, and that would more mimic. That could be a heavy duffel bag or something like that, and that would more mimic our classical squat that we teach in the gym. A little bit more leaned over, a little bit more, hips back, top position, a little less upright.
I've seen a lot of dog squats on Instagram lately.
Yeah.
If you got a big dog, put it
or
on your back.
Spouse. Put your
Or
spouse on your back,
See,
so
now that's a challenge because it's
overhead
like
squat.
the weight distribution is not even right across. So that's
So you got all these different movements that you combine, but first of all, we got body weight movements. So we got things like air squats, push-ups, sit-ups. We've got everything from pull-ups to chin-ups to handstand push-ups. We've also got things that are body weight movements that are more metabolically generated, like burpees, bear walks, bear crawls, crab walks, crab crawls. We've got all these different movements that we can put in there that are really just all body weight gymnastics oriented. We got handstand push-ups. We've got handstand walks, handstands in and of themselves.
Right.
We've got all these different movements that we could combine into a workout that really many of them are very functional, like a handstand push-up. If you can do a handstand push-up, is just a press overhead, but it's body weight.
Press with the body weight,
Right. But we also might just take your kettlebell or your dumbbell and do a press overhead, okay?
Right.
Or take your heavy bag and do a press overhead from your chest, okay? So these are the body weight movements, and we generally do those as body weight movements without weight, obviously, resistance.
Yep.
Then we have the resistance-oriented exercises. And these are generally speaking, it's pretty simple. These are the body weight movements that now we add loads to. Now, there's also some creative ones in there, but so like we've already talked about, we might add a heavy bag to the air squat. We might add a heavy bag or a kettlebell or dumbbell to the overhead press. Okay. We might add to the push-up, we might add a weight on your back, and that could be a bag of concrete, or something on your back, and do weighted push-ups. Okay. So you can add resistance to most of these body weight style workouts. You could wear a vest. You could wear a 20 or 40 pound weight vest, and you could do air squats with it. I have a 40 pound weight vest.
Yeah.
Well, do air squats with that. Do high intensity air squats. That rip your legs to pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
And so,
yeah, if you want to get some entertaining ideas, go to Bud Jeffries. Find him on Instagram. He's an old time classical strongman, so he does like a lot of circus type lifts. And he's always out on he must live on a farm or something. He's got a bunch of property, and he only trains outside barefoot, and so he'll like hold an axe out with his left arm at a 90-degree angle while he's like target shooting with a pistol in his right hand.
Don't do that in your local neighborhood, please.
Yeah, maybe not the target shooting part.
But I get quarantined in another way.
He's got buckets and all sorts of stuff. So it's it's fun. You can get creative with this.
So that brought up some other ideas. I mean, I've got some stone molds at home. You could pour some stones if you have some stone molds, or a friend has one, and you could do some stone lifts. Okay. You could also, like we said, do the heavy bag lifts. You could also do some heavy carries, like some farmer carries.
Yeah.
If you have a sled, you could makeshift a sled. You could do some sled pushes and pulls, and there's a prowler type movements. So there's all kinds of resistive work that we could do. But when we're talking about resistance training, we're talking about an external force, and it generally requires some type of load, but you got to be creative with what you got around the house.
That's right.
So I really like the idea of taking a heavy duty canvas duffel bag, find it at your Army Navy store, or maybe you ordered it online, or maybe you already got one, and just load it up with a bunch of pea gravel bags and weigh them out. And that's a great resistive, unstable load that you can do some of these lifts with.
Yeah. If you still have access to a hardware store, you can get, if you want sand, you can get gravel. You can also get sand. Look for the kiln dried sand. So it's nice and dry, so you can throw it in a bag. You don't have to worry about it getting moldy or anything like that. It's great stuff. Great stuff.
I like the pea gravel the best because it has a tendency it sticks together better.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy.
And if it does get out of there, it's not as likely to get all over the place.
Right.
But anything like that will give you some resistance. So we talk about resistance training,
and I'll just point out there that a lot of the mechanics, the specific mechanics of the movement, are going to depend on what you actually have available.
Right.
But remember, go back to the physics that we talked about with barbells. What do we need to do to in just about any lift that we do with resistance? Right. Well, even a body weight lift.
Right.
We have to maintain our center of mass over our midfoot. Right. We have to basically maintain our balance with whatever load that we're carrying. So the same thing applies. If you've got a duffel bag on your back, you still have to stay on your midfoot.
Right.
Now, your specific back angle is going to depend on the size of the duffel bag, where it is. Your anthropometry.
Right.
If you're holding a kettlebell in front of you, like you said, it's going to look more like a front squat. But remember, the same principles apply. Find your midfoot.
Be in balance. Yeah.
Stay in balance. And so
if you're doing a handstand push-up, your weight is going to be in the middle of your palm, basically.
Right.
And that becomes your foot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a little bit behind your knuckles and basically kind of in the middle of your palm and a little bit back to the pads of your fingers. But everything's still got to be in balance for you to be in that overhead posture, or that upside down upright posture. The key there is when you're doing resistance-oriented training, that we're going to also have to modify the set and rep scheme. So we're going to talk about that in just a second.
Right.
But then I want to go to the third principle.
Okay.
Monostructural type stuff, endurance type stuff that's more metabolically demanding. I mean, these types of workouts can all be metabolically demanding, but we're also talking about things like jump ropes, running, jogging. We could also be talking about doing a Schwinn Airdyne or an upright bike, an echo bike, an assault bike. If you have a rower, talking about wind sprints. If you have access to a pool, you could be swimming. So these are more monostructural biking, outside biking, mountain biking, doing mountain bike sprints or something like
race
that. Hill
walking.
Sprints. Yeah, race walking, fast. Yeah, you bet. But we're basically talking about more single modal, monostructural type activities. And so we're going to add those activities in too, based on our programming model. So we have three things: pure body weight movements, resistive training movements, and then last but not least, more monostructural movements that are more aerobically or cardiovascular demanding. Now, when we talk about resistance and we talk about how can we get and maintain the best gains while we don't have access to heavy loads, then we're going to have to talk about increasing the intensity, because we can't increase load intensity a lot of times. We only have so much weight.
Right.
And now you can do things like kettlebell swings with a heavy kettlebell, or you could do Turkish get-ups. Those are real creative too, a little bit more complicated. And you could do, like we said, front squats and back squats and presses and all these different things. But in the big scheme of things, the overarching principle here is, because the load is still quite a bit lighter than you may have been doing during barbell training with these functional movements, these compound movements, you're going to have to increase the intensity. And the way that we increase the intensity is we shorten the rest many times, and we also increase the rep scheme. We increase the reps to be more in that what you would really consider stamina endurance range. And then we also combine other movements with it so that we get almost like a supersetting or a giant set type of scenario where even though you might only be doing dumbbell presses or like a push press or presses overhead with 25-pound dumbbells, and you're used to pressing 185 for 3 sets of 5, you might be combining that with push-ups and handstand push-ups. Or some other metabolic thing. You might be on the assault bike, the arm bike, and you might be doing 1 minute max efforts, and then you come over and you do, 15 push presses with 25-pound dumbbells.
Right.
I promise you, your shoulders are getting crushed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's the concept there. So what we do is, because we don't have access to load as intensity, because that's one of our intensity types, load.
Right.
We're going to go ahead and increase the set and rep scheme and increase the volume to offset the intensity.
Right.
And then the other way we're going to modify intensity is rest times are going to decrease, rep counts are going to increase.
Yeah, and so one of the things we're doing there when we have when you increase the rep range and when you superset things like you're talking about, superset being doing some presses and then dropping down doing push-ups that kind of thing, just right one after another. We're increasing the amount of time that we're putting the muscles under tension. Right,
without rest.
Without rest.
So there's a big metabolic demand there too.
There's a big metabolic demand, and we also know that that's one of the key drivers of hypertrophy, right? So if you want to build more muscle mass, you need to put those muscles under tension for a longer period of time. So that's a way to do that.
Right, and the loads generally got to be reasonably high enough to cause that hypertrophy effect.
Right.
But, most people would say somewhere around 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max or something like that. So in some of these cases, some of the hypertrophy is going to be limited.
Yeah.
But no matter what, your muscles, your entire musculoskeletal system, including your brain and your neurological response, it's going to be pretty high.
Yeah.
And it's going to challenge another domain of your fitness that you might not be doing while you're just doing barbell training.
Yeah. And so one thing I wonder there is, we talk about the novice effect. When we get somebody that's just coming off the couch, they could literally do anything. They could go ride their bike,
right,
and they're going to get stronger, right? But we know that just riding the bike is not going to get them a whole lot stronger for very long, right?
Correct.
So, but even for people who do train regularly, if they expose themselves to something new, right? They start training in a different rep range, different energy pathways, that kind of stuff. Is there a novice effect that they can benefit from over the next couple of weeks?
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a novice effect within that new training model.
Right, within the new training model.
Exactly. And, I love what Rip said one time. I heard him say this. He said, you put someone on the bike who's a novice, they'll get stronger.
Yeah, right.
Just by putting them on a bike, have them do fast-paced walking, they get stronger because more is always better than less,
Yeah.
In that scenario.
It is stress to them.
Right,
yeah.
In that scenario, in a novice. You can't say that about an intermediate or advanced lifter, but, this is not classical strength training.
Right.
What we're recommending here is not classical strength training. And we would never say that this would make you strong. It's not. But it will help you diminish the loss in muscle mass and the loss of strength and some of the other fitness elements that you've developed if you've been doing classical strength training until you can get back into the gym environment. Because what we're talking about right now is not a really classical living situation either. We're not
Right.
talking about a normal living situation. We're talking about, the lack of access to facilities and training and coaching that you've been having in the past. So yes, people will now. Again, people need to be hydrating really well. They need to be consuming a lot of water. They need to have their nutrition spot on. You might have to increase your carbohydrate intake a little bit because some of these workouts are very metabolically demanding. You need to be doing these workouts within your own capacity. So just because you're a strong guy, don't think you can go in there and kill a high intensity workout with high reps and not crush yourself. So be careful for the first week. Just kind of do these at a don't crush all 3 of them or 4 of them if you're going to do. And my recommendation would be to start with just 3 workouts a week. And then see how you do. And then you could go up to 4 if you wanted to, and sometimes even 5. You could do like 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, something like that. Or you could do every other day training and then have 2 days off. So
now, I did want to ask you about that. What about, so some of these workouts that we're going to be dropping include some sort of explosive movements like sprinting.
Sure.
How would somebody that's a mainly barbell training that hasn't done a 100-meter sprint in months or maybe years, how should they start going, like working up to that? Because my worry is that if they just go straight to an all-out wind sprint, they
pop
might
something.
Yeah, it might pop a little hammy.
Well, I think the key there is before some of these training type workouts where you're doing sprints and stuff is warm up.
Okay.
Warm up. It's different than barbell training.
Yeah.
We want you to get a little bit of a sweat on before you start your workout. So warm up. We could also post just a general warm up before these workouts that you could do, maybe like a 5-minute warm up. That's just a series of body weight movements that you could do. And so we'll post that on there too.
Okay.
And just do that warm up before every single training session.
It's like some jogging, high knees, just kind of
jumping jacks, high knees, a handful of burpees, walking lunges. We haven't even talked about lunges and all those other things. Those amazing step ups, weighted step ups, and kettlebell swings. And I mean, there's a whole myriad of movements that we could talk about. But all these overarching principles are the key. So then when we throw these workouts out, we'll try to mix and match these domains and mix and match. So during the week, you'll have a little bit longer workout, and then you'll have one workout that'll just be a crushing short, high intensity workout, and then you'll have a workout that'll be somewhere in the middle.
Okay, now I want to ask again let's go back to rest times really quick. What are kind of some ballpark rest times people can start with? And then obviously to make things harder, as you said, we can always decrease the rest time. Let's say we've got a workout it's a body weight circuit and it's going to be 4 rounds. And this is the first time you're ever going to do it. So I'm just going to make something up here. It's going to be 4 rounds. Each round is going to be 20 air squats, 20 push-ups, 20 mountain climbers. Okay. And that's our circuit. Should I be resting? Should I be trying to do that continuous? Do one circuit and then go right into the next one? Or should I wait a couple minutes between rounds? How should I start?
I would say let your fitness and your response determine your rest time. If you've got a relatively good high intensity base or relatively good training base and those type of metabolic demands, you could probably do it without any rest in between rounds.
Okay, just continuous. One round,
just continuous
go
movement.
Right into the next.
And I always say constant work beats fast. I used to always tell our members in our CrossFit gyms, when they were doing competitions or they were doing workouts in the gym, constant work beats fast. Dial it back a little bit, slow your movements down a little bit, but keep working, just keep at it. And then at the very end, what I like to do when I used to do those workouts is I would unfortunately always come out too fast. And at the very end, I try to kick it up and sprint to the home.
Yeah.
Okay. And finish hard. But I would say with some individuals, finish the first round, see how you feel. If you can hold a conversation, while you're talking, while you're breathing, and you can hold this conversation and you feel relatively good and your heart rate is within a reasonable range, okay, then go ahead and hit the second round. All right?
Yeah.
And just keep doing that. Now, play it out, see how you feel, and the next time you might repeat that workout, go a little bit harder.
Right.
And so you almost, in some ways, when you're training high intensity interval training, you almost stair step it in a linear progression.
Yeah, I was about to say,
So if it took you, say, 8.5 minutes the first time you did it, the only way to make that linear is the next time you did that, try to go for 8.25.
Sure.
Or 8 minutes flat. And then the next time you do it, try to go to 7.25 minutes,
Right.
Or 7.5 minutes. And so you continue to try to improve over time.
Yeah, I like to, we tend to use more monostructural, or I tend to use more monostructural conditioning here at the gym because people are barbell training and we'll do maybe 1 or 2 little conditioning workouts a week.
Right.
And when I do that, I like to start people, let's say if they're doing a prowler push, we'll start with, say, 5 sprints.
Right.
And it might be 2 minutes rest in between if they're fairly novice still.
Right.
And but what I like to do first is add sprints to go from 5 to 6, from 6 to 7. And then once we get in the kind of 7 range, 7, 8 maybe, then start decreasing the rest time. So it go from 2 minute rest to a minute 45 to a minute 30. And that seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I generally say, when I program workouts, the work to rest time is based on the adaptation that I'm looking for. So it's not it's not random. There's a reason for the randomness.
Right.
It's not totally without thought. But a good example would be a 1 to 2 rest is going to give someone, and so it's 1 to 2 basically means they work and they rest twice as long as it took them to do the work.
Right.
That gives them a pretty good recovery cycle. A 1 to 3 is even better. Okay. A 1 to 1, minimal rest, because if it took you a minute to do the work, you get a minute of rest. But a minute of rest is pretty good when you're talking about recovering. Okay.
Yeah. That kind of that kind of EMOM thing seems to work really well every minute on the minute, because that's
that's another way to get some resistive training in them, some work in, and then to space it out over time. But I tell you what I like to do here is I like to play with those numbers and invert them sometimes. Sometimes, like you said, sometimes I'll go 1 to 1, 1 to 3, 1 to 2, whatever it is. And then next time I'll go 1 to half.
Yeah.
1 to half. It just crushes them, So there needs to be some methodology in how you're doing that work rest cycling. And a good example is if you've ever done Tabata work, we'll throw some Tabata workouts in there. That's a 8-round cycle.
Right.
With 20 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest.
Yeah.
By the time you start your rest, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
So, after about the 5th round, it just crushes you because it catches up to you. What's happening is your body is not having enough time to recover from the metabolic demands.
That's right.
And from the work demands.
The glycolysis is just not fast enough to get you more energy.
And eventually you might run out of fuel.
Right.
Or you run out of the right type of fuel that you need to maintain that level of intensity. And so what happens is you see it as I'm upside down. I can't hold this work pace anymore. And what your body's telling you is I'm about to go to fat burning, or I'm going to be burning more fatty acids for this, or fats for this. And that's just not as efficient and as explosive of energy source.
That happens every time I do those dang Tabatas on the bike.
Yeah.
I start out like a hero, and then by round 4 hits, and I'm just I'm half the speed.
I tell people 5 is the round where you just start. You realize, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought. 4, you're still okay, almost. You're starting to feel it, but 5 is you're over halfway there. You start to realize, wow, this is going to crush me. And so, I think in all these things, in all these workout principles, what we're really trying to do is maintain our fitness.
Yep.
We know we won't be able to maintain the strength gains that we have, but when we go back to the gym, then we can deload a little bit. And it matters how long we're off.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We need to do another episode on that. We've talked about a little bit. What happens if you miss?
Unquarantined.
We'll talk about the taking the mask off.
Yeah. And we've done life deloads, and we've done several episodes that you can go back to those episodes and find out what principles we use when a lifter or a member has been out of the fitness realm and they're coming back to it. And sometimes it's completely out. They're on a vacation where they have no access to equipment. It's very remote, or they get very, very ill and they come back. And all of those situations, it depends in how we're going to deload. But we're going to deload anywhere from 5 to 15% on the average. Those are kind of the ranges. And then, but we don't necessarily have to ramp back up at the same pace that we did before. We could accelerate that ramp if we see that our lifter or our trainee is really adapting fairly well when they come back.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
man, I think we've covered what we need to cover to get started. And when we post these workouts for the 40 Fit Quarantine fitness workouts, we will give some instructions in there. We'll have a very easy warm-up that you can do that'll just get a sweat on. And remember that when you do these workouts, that you might experience some soreness that you're not used to experiencing if you've been doing just classical barbell training. But man, thanks for joining 40 Fit Radio today, and thanks for joining the 40 Fit Nation. We look forward to interacting with you guys on the next podcast.
Right.
And stay safe, stay healthy out there. Maintain all the good, healthy, precautionary techniques that all the authorities are recommending. And if you want to email us at info@40fit.com. Go to our Facebook page, 40Fit Nation.
Yeah, and post some of your workouts there.
Yeah,
we want to see what you're doing.
Post videos.
Yeah.
If you do one of our workouts, we'll number them. Post which workout you did and post a quick video and how you felt. We'd love to be interacting with you guys on the Facebook page, on the Instagram page, which is @40Fit Radio. We love hearing from our listeners and interacting with you guys. Have a great and safe and healthy week. See you guys later, and thanks for joining the 40Fit Nation.
Thanks, guys.